the god of Hellfire, and I bring you fire. I'll take you to burn. Fire. I'll take you to learn. I'll see you burn.
Hey everybody, well, I've just about got over the trauma of doing my review, or whatever you'd like to call it, of the Hellfire Mini, which I did a short while back ago, and I think I've still got the shakes as a consequence. What did I think about it? I thought it was amazing, and this was my first step into Genesis atomizers. What I did mention was that I also got from Neil, who kindly lent me that Hellfire Mini, I got a Hellfire Dripper. Now, as it stands, I have that same dripper sitting on me yoke or my point, depending on what way you call it. And frankly, I don't know about you, but I'm not sure that there's any better looking setup out there than this. I mean, it just suits it beautifully. Now the drip tip, that's an old Sam drip tip on top of it. I may change that for something else, but just look at it. I mean, it's a 20mm mod, so nice and thin, and then that just sits absolutely beautifully on it. And I don't know, for a discreet little setup, there's an 18490 battery in that. That is just the absolute business. Now, in it at the moment, I've got Bubba's Bounty, which I got a sample of from somebody. And I put a coil into this earlier on. I put a silica coil into it, and it's just about 1 ohm. Just slightly over 1 ohm is what it is at the moment. So let's give it a try. And it is gorgeous, absolutely. Well, the juice is nice anyway, and there's obviously all sorts of talk about Bubba's Bounty and how difficult it is to get, and there's nothing else like it. I actually think that there is now. There's a couple of other things that are very, very like it, but nonetheless, a really, really nice tobacco vape, and a really thick one as well. But here it is sitting in the Hellfire Mini on my little my point or me yoke, and it's just going a dream. It's perfect, absolutely perfect. So look, what we're going to do with this one is we'll go down close as usual. This is going to be a relatively short video because it's very straightforward to actually make a coil for these things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put an M3 micro coil into this, and I'm actually going to put cotton into it this time as well. Now I also have, and I did this earlier on, and this is purely for comparison, I've got an IGO L or an IGO S, I can never remember, dripper, and into that I have put a coil. It's 1.5 ohms. It's a microcoil, an M3 microcoil, and I've put cotton into that as well. So what I'll do is I'll try and get exactly the same into the Hellfire Dripper, and then we'll just do a comparison between the two of them. This one obviously is not expensive at all. This one is, as I said earlier on, a bit of a unicorn, and is very, very highly thought of. So what we can do is do a little bit of a sort of a side-by-side comparison of them, and then we can see which one comes out on top. So let's go down close and have a look. So here's the Hellfire Dripper up close. Now, as you'll see, I've actually got it sort of taken apart there already. The reason is because it's incredibly hard to pull the top off these things unless it's already situated onto a mod. Let me just go back slightly here. The O-ring that's on this fits in here so snugly. It means that, you know, it's absolutely guaranteed that the top's not going to come off by mistake. So if we look at it, let's look at the top first. And basically, the top of it kind of looks like, you know, other drippers. It's got this bit of beveling here, which looks very nice. It's got really quite a small air hole. But when you look inside, first of all, there's a lot of weight to it. I mean, there is, it's really quite a weighty thing. And then when you look inside, you can sort of see why. And the reason is, and if you can have a look in there, you can see that the chamber reduces. So rather than it being the same width right the way up to the top with a hole in it, it's actually stepping in and, you know, getting narrower as it gets towards the hole. And that's where the weight's coming from, because there's a lot of metal in that. Now that's done in that way so as to essentially concentrate the flavour and also the vapour as well. And you know, that's one of its attributes which makes it sort of stand out and work better than some of the others. If we look at the iGo beside it, you can see that there is none of that really happening at all. Now, I'm not going to be saying a bad thing about this because, you know, for the price, I think they're absolutely great, the iGos. But you can see within this one, as a comparison, there's that is very much a point of difference. So, other than that, just beautifully made, just like the Hellfire Mini. You can see that this has just been turned fantastically well. And so that's the top part. So now when we actually look at the base, straightforward enough, although a couple of things. First of all, again, like the Hellfire Mini, the 510 connection down here is all made of the same piece of metal. It's not an insert, it's not a sort of a push fit piece which actually goes through it. This here is part of this. It was all made together. We can also see there's an adjustable pin at the bottom, which is always a good thing. And then on the top we've got our screw here for a flathead, and then we have a knurled piece here, little screw, where you're actually going to capture your wire underneath that. And then there's a bit of a well, not a terribly deep well, but a bit of a well there. But as I said before, the way the top of this fits onto it, I would imagine that even if your juice is coming above this level a little bit, it's not really going to make much of a difference because it's got no hope of getting out at the bottom at all, because the O-ring is so snug on it. So that's basically it. There's not much more to say about that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a microcoil for it, and we'll put cotton into it, and then basically we'll see what this is like in comparison to the iGo, which will have exactly the same setup. Okay, let's make a little coil for this baby. Now I've just stuck it on an ohm meter here. It's just to give it a bit of a base so it's not sort of falling all around the place or whatever. So what I'm going to do is put the same coil on as I have in the iGo, so we can do a direct comparison between them. Now what I'm going to do is the M3 coil. So I've got some 0.28 Canthal here, which has already been flamed, and I have my trusty M3 screw here. Now what I'm going to be looking for is about probably about 6 turns, and that should get us to around the 1.5 ohm mark, something like that. Now it's always desperately hard to actually see how many wraps you're doing on this, but then again, that's just a consequence of my age rather than anything else. So you never really need to worry about the first turn, because that can be sort of jettisoned afterwards. But basically, hold it like that, go for your first turn and get it into a thread. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we've got 6 turns there that are all nice, and you see the first one there, which is a bit dodgy. We can undo that one there and just bring it back again. Now this is actually going to be going on so that we need the 2 legs coming up the same side like that. So that's basically what we're looking for. Now to put it on, straightforward enough. Basically, you know, this is just a wee bit loose, this one here. Basically just sit it into the middle there, and what we need to do is get one there underneath the screw. So we can pull that back like that. And then the other one is to go underneath this knurled piece here, and we can pull that back like that. So then all we need to do is just tighten up both of the things. So we'll tighten up that first one there, and then with the screw we'll tighten up this screw so that it captures the wire. And then just give that a little bit of a turn there, and then all we need to do is basically unscrew the screw, and we should be in pretty good shape. Now, of course, if I'd done it further towards the top of the screw, I wouldn't have to unscrew as much. But anyway, you get the idea. So let's just take that out there. And now we're left with our coil sitting on there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to nip off these extra pieces. So that bit can come off there. And then we get this piece off here as well. And that should be the sort of thing that you end up with there. Now, next thing is that, well, what we need to do is basically stick it onto a mod so that we can heat it up. And when we heat it up, then what we're going to do is compress it to make sure all those little coils stick together. So you can see it. Let me just see here now. Always going to get a bit of that, a little bit of smoke coming off it at the beginning. So all you have to do is just basically heat it till it goes red. Then what you want to do is get a tweezers and basically press them together like that. Heat it again, and then tweezers, press them together. As you can see now, they're basically pretty much stuck together. And that's the sort of thing we're looking for. So what I'll do now is I'll just stick it onto the ohm meter and see what we're reading. I'm hoping it's going to be around the 1.5 mark, somewhere like that. So there it is. Let's turn it around, plug in the cable. .4. So that's absolutely fine. That's the sort of area that I want. 1.3, 1.4. So it's ever so slightly below the one that I have on the iGo. Right, all we need to do now is get a bit of cotton to put into our little coil that you can just about see there. Now, cotton. Best thing, as ever with cotton, is to get as pure, sort of organic, non-bleached cotton as you can possibly get hold of. If you're uncertain of it at all, best thing is just to boil it. Boil it for about 10 or 15 minutes, allow it to dry naturally, and then you'll be in good shape. So I'm just going to pull this back just a little bit, just show you how I actually get the cotton ready. So there's a piece that I have there, so I've just sort of teased it out. Now remember, you're going through a pretty small coil here, so you don't need too much of this at all. So let's just start with that there. Now I find that the easiest way to do this and to get it as even as I can is to actually roll it on the palm of my hand. So again, in this case, always make sure that you've washed your hands beforehand, because otherwise it'll pick up all the oils on your hands and it's not going to taste the best. So then all you do is simply just put it onto your hand like this, and then use the heel of your other hand to roll it up, and just keep doing that. And eventually it'll all start to catch, as you can see there now, and it starts to thin down. But the good way about this method is is that it means that it's pretty even right the way across it. So we end up with something looking like that. And that should be okay for us. So let's give that a go, and I'm going to go for the thinner end here. Actually may still be just a wee bit thick. So let's just give it a couple more. And see how we go with that. So go back in close again. So with your little tail here, in you go. And then just tease it back and forth a bit like that. Remember, this is 28 gauge Canthal, so it can take a little bit of abuse. So you end up with something like that there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull it through to about there. Then see, have we enough to wrap it around? I'll go a little bit further to about there, and that should basically give me enough. Then what I'm going to do is, I personally prefer to keep a clear space on the side of the coil. Remember, you're going to have your air hole on this side. So I would just bring it to there and then snip off, if I can do this, snip off the cotton about there. And then on this part here, and you can open it up a little bit. Basically what you want to do is just lay that down there, like that. Again, I'm just going to take a little bit off there. So what's basically happening is you're almost completing a circle. So as you can see here at the end, the bit that I cut off there, that part there is now going into it. You can basically just connect it together, and that essentially completes your circle within it. So we end up with something like that, but we have a nice clear spot here for our air hole, for this to be shooting the vapor out all over the place. Next thing is just to basically get a bit of liquid onto it, because that means that then you can just set it exactly in place as you want it. And this is vanilla custard, Wingnuts vanilla custard that I'm using here, because that's what I've also got in the iGo. Right, just before I pull back on the close-up, I just want to see how this little thing is performing. So just screw it on there, undo my safety. Let's have a look. And I think it's safe to say that that's doing exactly what it's meant to do. Just put another little touch on before I put the top on. And then, as I said before, there's our coil, there is our air hole, and what we want to do is just basically line it up so that the air hole is in line with the actual coil. Okay, so all done. We're coming in at about 1.4 ohms, sitting with a pretty much a brand new battery, so it's certainly over 4 volts in this Meyoke or My Point, and let's see what it's like. The flavour of it is gorgeous. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a wee bit more into it. Just another couple of drops. And remember, this has to bed down, this coil. This has literally just gone into it. The flavour is just absolutely amazing off that. Now, this is the IGO. This is 0.1 of an ohm higher. Again, it's sitting on, you know, pretty much a close to full battery. It's just sitting on a Nemesis. Now, it's a much airier draw on that for a start. And I mean, it is very, very good. But this one, there's an intensity about this one that is lacking in the IGO. On this one here, in comparison with the other one, when you're actually drawing it in, you're getting a bit of a flavour, but not a huge amount. With this one, when you're actually drawing it in, you're getting a huge amount of flavour. I mean, straight away you know what it is that you're actually vaping. And it's absolutely gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. So when you take the two of them, they look reasonably similar. The engineering on this and this looks prettier. I mean, it definitely does look prettier, this one. And the materials it's made from are better. We also know from looking at the inside of them as well that this has got a reducing chamber. So as it heads up towards the top, it is getting narrower and narrower as it's going up. And that has to be something to do with why the flavour is better on this one than it is on the other one. Because the flavour definitely is better on this. It's absolutely gorgeous. So there's not much more I can say really. The Hellfire Dripper looks absolutely stunning, tastes gorgeous, is really, really easy to put a coil into. And once you put a microcoil in like that, you know, cotton in this particular case, you just pull the cotton out, leave the coil in place, give it a bit of an old burn just to sort of get any of the build-up that's on the coil off. Stick a new bit of cotton in and you could have that coil in there for a long, long time. So it means, you know, once you start losing a bit of flavour and you need to change it, it's only going to take you a jiffy to actually sort it out. So, and that would be true of most drippers. But I do think as well that, you know, the way that the screw is on the inside, and also the fact that you've got a knurled screw on the center post that you can actually screw the thing down, it makes it very, very easy to actually put a coil in the first place. And already, I mean, coil's only been in here for a couple of minutes, it's starting to taste more and more and more. So all I can say is thanks to Neil for lending me his Hellfire Dripper, and also his Hellfire Mini, which was in the other video. They're both absolutely stunning pieces. I believe with the Hellfire Mini, somebody put up on my YouTube page that, you know, they're not being made anymore, and that the only place you can really get them is in classifieds. That may well be the case in relation to this as well. So they come up secondhand every now and again, but I would imagine that they're probably trading for more than they cost in the first place, because they are much loved, and I can see exactly why. And it is going to be with great regret that I have to send this back down to where it came from so that it can join the other unicorns in that particular household. So that's it. Hellfire Dripper, absolutely fantastic. Really, really love it. Looks gorgeous on a 20mm mod, particularly my yoke. This thing here, look, it's made for the thing. It's gorgeous. So that's basically it. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something, and I'll catch you again soon. Cheers.